When Kobe and I decided to create a podcast and coined it the Father Son Podcast, most would feel this is a gimmick for the podcast, and that couldn't be further from the truth. From the day Kobe was born, I introduced him to video games. This was a way of life for me, as I can remember my father buying me the Odyssey home system, where the cellophane field that clung to the TV determined what game you were playing. Kobe's love for video games grew, as did the bond of a father and a son. When I introduced him to online play, his world opened to new heights. He learned quickly that the incredible gaming experience wasn't just something shared between a father and a son, but there was an entire world that shared his passion for gaming. Gaming was just part of his upbringing, as school or sports was. We always made arrangements that a video game experience was just an arm's length away, even when we went on vacation. As Kobe got older, our experience took us to the road, experiencing events like the Great E3 to more modern events like Summer Game Fest, the Xbox Experience, IGN, and PAX. Kobe graduated from college and now works in the video game industry on the Xbox team. So, as you can see, it was nothing but natural progression to now share our experience and love of the industry through our podcast. Now sit back and enjoy the ride.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Father and Son Gaming Podcast right here on Active Reload Gaming. My name is Kobe, aka Kobe127. That is Kevin, aka Octane699. Dad, how you doing? How was your pilgrimage this weekend?
A little disappointing.
Why is that? For those who don't know, what was your pilgrimage?
Nate and I, for those of you that know Nate that comes on the podcast a lot and was one of our guests on the podcast, we decided to go on a pilgrimage up north from us and hit up video games. We were going to try to beat our one-day record with Kobe and I that we did 13 different retro video game stores in the Seattle area. Well, Nate and I were going to try to do 15. Well, we got to 3.
And why is that?
We did not realize that for whatever reason, the majority of video game stores up north from us are closed on Sundays. Go figure.
That's so crazy.
It is crazy. So we didn't really get to anything but 3 video game stores. I picked up maybe 3 off of my list that I knocked out. But
what did you grab?
What did I grab? I grabbed Immortals of Avium.
Okay.
For the PS5. I grabbed The Godfather, the game, for the original Xbox. And I got Morrowind, the Platinum Edition, for the original Xbox.
Why Morrowind?
Because it's one of the games, when I'm looking at the original OG Xbox, it's one of the games that you can't, it's not backwards compatible. It's only can be played on the OG Xbox.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's one of the list. Like, I looked up a list of games that I like for the original OG that aren't backwards compatible. So I'm picking them up. That's been my recent focus of retro pickups.
Well, that's pretty cool. Also, it does say the Morrowind is fully backwards compatible on the Series X. I just looked it up.
No, that's not what it said on this. Was that this was the Platinum Edition?
It's still the same game.
I don't know.
But I think you can pop it in your Series X and it'll just boot it up. So
I'll see.
You have to give it a shot because I think one of those games that might, like, I know with a couple of them, they've been going back and getting like the up-resing or whatever that the Series X has been doing. But
that's cool. I paid $4 for it, so I'm not brokenhearted.
No, I mean,
I didn't have it for the Xbox anyway, so
yeah, Morrowind's pretty easy to get. So, but all things being said,
yeah, I agree, Bombay.
There's 16 Xboxes behind you. That is true. There is a lot. But for all those who are new or returning, you can follow us on all of our socials right here on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Spotify. We're at Active Reload Gaming. On Twitch or Twitter/X, we're at ActiveRel. That is with an REL, ActiveRel Gaming. Up in the top left corner, you can join our Discord if you so desire. You can scan that with your phone. Super easy. You can come in and chat with us as, we talk about things like this. Or you can see me finally achieving the 100% run on Resident Evil Requiem, because that was my big mission this weekend. And I was able to get that done. I'm very happy that it's finally over. So yeah. Definitely.
Nate is on Team PlayStation, he just said.
That's fine. We're all gamers here. Play where you want to play. That is my motto.
And no, I did forget, I did get one extra game, which was Manhunt for the Xbox, original Xbox.
Where is it?
It's down. I processed it and I put it in the collection. I didn't process these yet. That's why they were still sitting here. Nate brought it to me. I bought it from Planet Retro, and they gave it to Nate to give to me.
Gotcha. Well, Manhunt's a pretty cool game. It's one of the old school Rockstar games. But today we're going to be talking about success, because this comes on after my weekend. For people who were sticking around, I was streaming a lot of Marathon this weekend. I did it on Friday and Sunday. And, there's been a whole bunch of discourse online about success in video games and, what is a flop? Is it dead on arrival? The conversation online does get tiring to read every now and then, because I just feel like, I'm going to give my hot take immediately before we actually get into conversations. I think Steam charts should be banned from the public audience, because I think so many people use SteamDB as this ammunition to fire against devs. I think people are so addicted to Steam database and looking at the player charts. I think it should be banned for the normal audience, because it has become such a cesspool and is, like I said, just ammunition to be using against others. So I get tired of just seeing the SteamDB charts popping up every now and then. But Bombay says slowly closes SteamDB. It's good public knowledge, but man, people are really weaponizing it. So.
Can I ask you a question about that, though? Is it, now I come from analytics, it's what I do a lot for my job. Is it really that they're just jumping on that, or is that the only source that a gamer has to kind of go look at that data?
Unless if you are truly engagement farming, I don't see many people being like truly caring about the player counts. Like in a day-to-day of like normal people, like normal gamers I talk to, like who are just like playing their games, never once have I heard them care about player counts. I think it's the people online who are engagement farming that really care about it.
Or is it people that are very frugal about their money and figured, if I'm going to jump into this, I want to look at all angles. Not everybody's as blessed as we are that, hey, $70 not a big deal, go out and get it. There's people that do only buy 2 games a year and that's all they can afford, or 3 games a year.
I just think the general thing, I don't think I know you're not on Twitter that much. The people that are using it are the people who buy for the blue check mark and are engagement farming for money. Like, it's the always like, oh, this game has like a 10% dip, it's dead, blah, 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 blah. So, it's just, it is what it is.
And I'll give you my overall feeling, because this, like, I don't pay attention to ratings of anything. I don't pay attention to anything in any of my forms of media, whether it be, the movies, Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 2 and I love it. Rotten Tomatoes gives it a 10 and I hate it. So I guess it's all subjective, but before you move on to that statement of Steam, then if you're going to throw that out, and I've told you this before, that the game scores that they give, I think they ought to throw them out.
Review scores and looking at the 2 very different things. Very different. You can't do apples to apples here.
But I think they should throw that out. How many of those people that are reviews are getting paid for it? How many of those people are just haters against them, so they're going to be negative about it?
One, in terms of official reviews, you have to disclose if you've been paid for a review. That is the law. Like, so I don't buy this whole conspiracy that these reviewers are being bought off. Now, in terms of Steam reviews, yes, people do review bomb. User scores, people always review bomb all the time because it is their voice. And I think Steam reviews should stay, because I think that does give some useful information. But, I do think I think Steam could definitely implement where you have to have played X amount of hours to be able to review. Like the minute that it's like you play for 1 minute, like you can go review the game. Like I don't think that's fair. But I think reviews are very different than what I'm talking about.
Okay. Nate says, remember calling hotlines?
No, I was too young.
I do, and I've called Nintendo's hotline. So I did do the Nintendo call centers where they had to look up what I was doing, and it was for the game Zelda, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, that was what it was for.
Yeah.
And then Bombay says, in some games, play counts can make a difference with things like queue times. A low player count or declining user base could impact things like server queue times, depending on how servers enable users to join. You can either wait for a full raid or half full bot filled raid. I mean, yeah, I'm just saying that, like, I think people have been weaponizing the player count charts a lot online, and that's why I'm getting tired of it.
I think your internet has been, you froze there for a second.
No, I didn't freeze on my end. So, but we'll continue. Either way, so the whole thing is, it came off the weekend of Marathon of me playing it, and then today I just saw that EA has laid off a whole bunch of people from Bombay says stream is good here, so it might have been a hitch on your end.
It's a beautiful restream.
What's that?
It's restream.
Yeah. So either ways, EA has just laid off a bunch of people today, especially from Battlefield Studios and a whole bunch of people who worked on Battlefield 6, which Battlefield 6, by all metrics, was a success. So that's what kind of really sparked this conversation, which is what even counts as success in modern gaming. And there's a lot of avenues to take, but I think where we start is we go and define the old version of success. So because you on Friday was talking about, we need to go back to the 360 era things and stuff, and I think we should transport back into that era. We should transport back even the Xbox One, PS4, because I think these eras are more of a parallel for today than looking at, say, like the NES era in terms of what success means back then, because that is a very different landscape than it is now. So I think the one thing that we should define with the old version as a success, to really make this feel simpler, is, where do we define it? Was it units sold, review scores, console exclusivity, prestige, franchise longevity, big launch day hype, or box sales as the main metric? What truly defined the old version of success? Let's just start with the 360 PS3 era.
To me, the old version of success that I've always remembered it as is bottom line sales.
Mm-hmm.
They just sold 200 million, copies, blah, 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 blah. That's what it was always measured by me, was revenue, and obviously discount.
So what was a success then back then? You say you can really break down, but obviously Call of Duty was always a success, but let's just look at the median. What was the middle ground success metric? And for sales,
well, I don't remember. Give me an idea. Look it up. What did Gears of War 1 sell? And what did Halo 3 sell? What was there? And that, to me, would be the high-end metric.
I am pulling it up. Gears of War 1 sold over 6 million copies, and it was considered a massive commercial success, selling over 3 million copies in its first 10 weeks and achieving 2 million sales within just 6 weeks of release.
So if I go back in my memory, there was a handful of metrics back then. One was how many were sold on the first day, or the first 24 hours, I think.
First 24 hours, yep.
So that was always the first metric. And then the second metric would have been how many overall copies did they sell in the first month, and then total. That's what I remember really being, what the metric was. Because everywhere you would read, and just when you just looked that up, I assumed you Googled it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it's spitting it out to you, was copies on 24 hours and total copies. That's how things were measured back then. Whether you played it, I don't think anybody really looked at it that, hey, this was done this game for Kobe was finished in 3 days and now he's not playing it. No one ever looked at it. And you got to remember, going back then, when you're looking at that, those metrics would have been started by Xbox because they were the first ones to have it online that they would see your. Because I remember even back in the Xbox days, at the end of the year, they used to give you your count of what games you played and how many hours you played. Like that's all data that they farmed from being online. So that's where that started. But I can remember you and I being excited at the end of the year to compare, what was your longest played game, and this, how many games did you play? And I remember that. So again, that's where the metrics would have started from. But I don't think those metrics ever made it mainstream till after the 360 that they were coming out with, online daily average players or daily or monthly average players. I don't know when they first started to do that.
So, and then I mostly agree with you, and I still think that the old model that we're defining, which was just pure sales, and I think it's funny that Bombay here says back then, if it was in stock to be able to be rented every time you go to 48 hours, it was on the decline. If it was out for rent every time you go, it's a 10 out of 10 game. So there was a lot of funny metrics that you can also look at as well, which is the rentals of a game and such. But even let's look at a multiplayer title, what considered because there were so many games during that old era that had a multiplayer mode attached to it. I'll use BioShock 2 as an example, where it wasn't groundbreaking, but it was a nice time to keep you engaged for a week then or 2 weeks, then you move on, and that was fine. The games weren't demanding your full attention for the next year. So what even defined a multiplayer success back then as well? Because I think that's what a lot of this conversation is surrounding.
But see, I don't know that they really looked at multiplayer as a success or looked at it from that vein because one, there was no transactions in it. So you're looking at the games that they're just playing online. So it's just a longevity. To me, that metrics didn't come into play because they didn't really care as long as you bought the game. So I think the online play was more of a feature of the game for somebody to buy. Because if you go back again to Gears 1, they weren't the online play was second nature thought. So I don't know that there was a metrics for their online back then, nor did they care. It was just making the longevity of their game or getting that new feature in there to play so you would buy the game.
Yeah, but then I guess my question is what kept people around? Because I feel we're going to go into a whole other thing about attention spans, because I think attention spans today are an all-time low, where people, you could say TikTok is a big competitor to gaming at this point. I think that's been said before, but what kept people to a multiplayer game when we talk? So that's the thing, is we talked about how every week there was a new game coming out. But some games were able to keep your attention for the whole year. And nowadays it's harder and harder to do that. And it's kind of the same release model. There's games coming out every day, and these multiplayer games, if you're not keeping the attention within the first 5 days, you're done. It's over. There is no coming back. So why is that? And we're, like I said, we're going to get into the new stuff soon.
Well, again, to me, that's the simple answer. I think it's just popularity of the game. I mean, how long has World of Warcraft been going?
Oof.
20 years? I mean, again, if the community likes it, they'll play it. Nowadays, because you're talking about all the different multiplayers is no longer a feature, but multiplayer could be a revenue stream. And then you even have the Call of Duties that separate the two. They're player campaign one and their multiplayer are different. You don't even have to download them now. So again, I just think that back then it was that they didn't look to monetize it. If you liked the game, you kept playing, because every once in a while when their player count would hit or get somewhere that they were looking at whatever metric on the back end, they might make new maps. But just because it was online doesn't mean that it was fed with new content.
Well, and I'm trying to remember when the microtransactions started, because it was later 360, but I mean, Call of Duty's always had map packs. Halo 3 had map packs that you can buy. So there was a steady feed of content coming that you had to go buy, which was technically downloadable content, however you want to spin it. Because I even remember, I think Resident Evil 5, you had to buy a multiplayer at one point. There was a lot of different things happening that really kind of culminated in the model today, which is, I think as we kind of look at this, there is a question that I have, which is why is success so much harder to measure nowadays than it was back then? Because I feel like when I asked you the initial question, you said, oh, that's an easy answer. It was XYZ. Why is success so much harder to measure now? Because there's different avenues we can take. There's digital sales that change visibility into things. You're not just having pure box sales anymore. There's subscription services, early access, live service changes, social media and streaming platforms, player expectations, budgets. Like, we can start breaking it down, but like when we're going to use Marathon as the example, and then we'll use Battlefield 6 as an example. So let's start with Battlefield 6. Battlefield 6 launched to critical acclaim. People allowed it to be the return to Battlefield. By definition, it sold millions of copies. It was in the top 10 selling charts each month since the game came out. But then the player count dipped immensely. And now the team who had successfully launched a game with X amount of revenue that was considered a success by all metrics, people are getting laid off. So why is it this game is not a success by EA standards now? Is it like what is happening? Because by all means, I think that is a success, but it's apparently it's not if people are getting laid off.
Again, to me, we would never know that answer, because if they're doing it to a layoff, you got to look at business 101. Internally, they have an ROI, their return on their investment. I don't know how much it took them to build it, how much it takes them to maintain it, to know that 1 million copies was break even for them of their ROI. Was it less? Was it only a little bit more? That's where a company makes that decision. I think that's totally separate from our conversation as what's today, because I think that's a business. You can say somebody, again, let's just use the metric because everybody knows this metric, that it took $1 billion to make GTA 6. Well, the reality is on the back end, they definitely had a model somewhere that said, this is the level we can spend because we'll know we'll make back X in sales within this time. Is that good for you? And if they say no, then it's not $1 billion, it's $700 million. Everybody has that on the back end of business 101. They don't just randomly say, hey, everybody work on this GTA 6 and oh my goodness, we're at $1 billion. Doesn't work that way. Business would never be able to fly. So your somewhat quick answer to your question, I don't know that we can look at the back end of DICE or any of that, EA for that, or any of it of what they're pulling off.
Yeah. I mean, so then I'm going to be a hypocrite here, and that is fine, because I know I just went on my hot take about Steam DB charts, but I have to use it for this example. So we're going to use Battlefield 6 then. So the game launched and the all-time peak on Steam was 747,000 players. Let's just look at Steam. Is that a success to you?
I don't know in modern day. I did not take a look. Now, to me, I have found some benchmarks.
Okay, let me ask this: a game
going into that.
A game of this scale and of this genre and of what this game is demanding, because it was a Call of Duty competitor, is that enough? And like I said, we don't know the Xbox or PlayStation player count, so we can only really rely on Steam, which is kind of a caveat to this conversation. But so it started with an all-time peak of 747K, and now, as of today, the 24-hour peak was 50,000 people. A lot of people would say this game is dead. Do you think the game is dead? Like, is it no longer successful? Like, this is where I have a hard time understanding the modern mentality.
But see, you're asking a question with no basis. I cannot answer if that's successful. Here's how I'm going to say it. If you were the first online playing game and you had 40 people, is that successful? Or now you're asking me, you're telling me what Steam is saying about how many people, but is that compared to another, ARK that was doing 50 times that? That's how you got to measure it. It's just not a number. And again, I'm going to go into something here that it's not what you think, but I found, and again, I'm going to say metrics. I gave the source, but it's Newzoo that it came from, but I'm going to tell you that I got it somewhere else. It says that some of the industry benchmarks, day one retention of whatever your day one is, 35 to 45% come back after day one. Then they go to day 7 retention, which is between 15 and 25%. And then after day 30, they say between 5 and 10% come back after what the launch was. That's how the industry looks at the daily average player and the monthly average player. And again, this is what they're looking at after it gets even 10 to 20%, to give the example. If there's 1 million players over the month, then that should break down to 100 to 200,000 daily players. That's what they look at as their metric. So it's a 10 to 20% after the first month.
So after the first month, okay. So right now, if it was 20% of the players on Steam, Battlefield would need 149,000 people based off that metric.
Daily, correct.
Daily. By that definition, it's not. And also, like, Cherry Tomato Boys, what they say here, I think is interesting, is I think the biggest change is the current gaming landscape. It's a war for attention now. Not only is a game competing against existing games like Fortnite, you're competing against TikTok and Netflix.
Well, I agree because I didn't even get to the Fortnites of the world, in the sense that they knew that they couldn't compete. So what did they do different? They offered the game for free. And I think that free has a lot to do with a lot of models now that, hey, I don't have to spend $70 on a game. I play it free, and I can play it pretty much on every platform out there. So again, I think that changed the model of what's going on there.
I mean, social media entirely and live streaming, I think, has changed the model of how every game.
That I agree.
If a game isn't popping off on Twitch anymore, like, you can consider that game also, I guess in quotes, dead, even if it's like if you're not hitting the top parts for a big blockbuster like a Battlefield or whatever, like, it gets tough. Now, like, the thing is, like, we talked about before this, like, with the whole marathon conversation, because a lot of people have been like, marathon's dead on arrival. And the game, as like I said, I'm going to be another hypocrite here. My only basis is the Steam charts. So, but for this conversation, I think the one thing is, like, people have to use the genre that the game is fitting in as well to measure success. Now, as I read these numbers off, I want you to look up what Tarkov players are looking like right now. Like, what is
I don't have my Steam on this one.
Okay, I'll look it up. But so, the all-time peak for Marathon in the extraction shooter genre launched at 88,000 concurrent players. Let me look at Tarkov. So Tarkov typically sees between 100,000 and 150,000 players during peak times and wipe events. And on Steam itself, its all-time peak was 47,000. But also Tarkov has had its own launcher for God knows how long. So that's what to look at. So Marathon launched to 88,000 people on Steam. This game is multi-platform. So there, like I said, that is another caveat to think about. And the peak today was 71,000 people. And some people are saying Marathon is dead and not a success, which I legitimately can't understand, because by these numbers and metrics and the extraction genre, which is already niche enough, I feel like this is a fine number. Plus, we don't have insight into what PlayStation numbers are like or Xbox numbers are like. So, like, this is the part where I start to get confused, and it gets interesting to define what is success in a multiplayer game, because we'll also look at Highguard. Highguard launched to about 100,000 people on Steam, and then it died immediately. Like, within the next 2 days, that game had lost 95% of its player base because people just didn't like it, and everything's vying for your attention, like Cherry said, and that game's now gone. It's going to be gone in a couple days. So, like, I don't know. I know I'm going on a lot of tangents here. Where do you want to start?
Well, again, And I can say this, that just again from the business mind, I think that sometimes the online stuff, because again, when you look at a game, people that do online, they put a bigger, in my opinion, they put a bigger metric to the revenue off of that online than they do off a single player, unless it's single player focused and then move over. But my my take on it, that I would have to think again from the business standpoint, that they got the metrics down there, that they need a concurrent 50,000 players a day, because then they have the metric that says somewhere in the back end that says out of that 50,000, you know, 30% will buy more content. The average content that's purchased is X. They have the calculations. They'd say it. So when you look at it and say, well, wow, they shut that down and they had 50,000, I'm just using that as example, 50,000 players a day. Well, that could be a massive success for one IP, and could be a massive failure for the other. But I think the shutting down comes from the studio, that they know the metrics of what they have to have. It's that simple, that like those metrics are out there. How many people playing, how many percentage buy stuff? What's my average cost per sale? And then look at it that way, and they're getting what they need. It's not, I don't think anybody's flying into this blindly.
So, and the one thing is Bombay brings about, making a joke about never forget, never forgive Fallout 76, but I also think Fallout 76 is a really good example in this whole thing. And we can also use No Man's Sky, where those games were dead on arrival after what those games ended up being, but they were still given the chance to recuperate and rebuild from the ground up. And I feel like nowadays, if a game doesn't launch at a bare minimum of whatever requirements, like there is no longer a chance to become successful. I feel like the stories you see of these success stories of like Fallout and No Man's Sky coming back, whatever extent, like Cyberpunk, like I feel like it can't happen anymore, because either the shareholders immediately pull out, players just do not give a second chance anymore. Like I think there's so many different caveats and facets that, like, if you don't hit like the ground running immediately, there is no coming back anymore.
Well, I, that's a tough one, because the what you had mentioned, I'm trying to think, what was the Xbox flop, the vampire game that just came out?
Redfall.
Redfall. Here's the difference with the three that you named. I don't know that 76 would have survived if it didn't have the name Fallout and Bethesda behind it. No Man's Sky, the reason why that had a second chance to come back, because they were the first ones to come out, and everybody was super hyped that it's an infinite world and it generates as you go and you'll never see the same things, blah, blah, blah. And then you had Cyberpunk coming out from CJ Project, another big studio, that that was deemed the new futuristic GTA. Now I go to Redfall. Redfall, I don't think ever had a chance to survive, because it didn't have any cool story behind it, any, monumental technology moving it forward, and it didn't have a Fallout / Bethesda name behind it. So again, the more I think about this, even in modern times, what you have of the name or what you have of moving the technology forward still can't have a rebound.
So then so Touchy Feely a little bit earlier said gamers are very opinionated and entitled. I'm going to ask a question. At this point, are player expectations too high? Because now you're saying, okay, these three things had very unique circumstances. So if a game like Redfall, which, I would say it would fit perfectly into the 360 era game, where it was that mid-tier game where, like, it didn't have to be this big budget thing, obviously, through development time and hell, like it released in a very bad state. But that game wasn't given the chance to really, they tried, but they got shut down after a little bit of them trying to bring it back. So now is the question, because I want to bring back the point from your Friday of we need to go back to the 360 era. Like I said, are gamers' expectations just way too high now that you cannot experiment like that? And for example, like a Marathon is a big experiment for Bungie within the extraction shooter. Like, are these experiments no longer allowed? Do we have to just fit into what is going to sell from the AAA space? I'm excluding indie from this because indie is a whole separate. I'm talking about the main AAA, AA space because, like I said, indie, and I know Touchy Feely says Project Gorgon, I think I'm pronouncing it right, is a tiny dev team and they got a few thousands of players. Then that seems successful. And that is very true for indie development. Like, if you, as an indie, if you get upwards of 1,000 plus players, you're most likely having a really good time.
But see, and I'll answer that in a second. But that's exactly what I was talking about, Touchy Feely, is that's the metrics, that's the ROI behind the scene that we don't know. And indie can, like you just said, 1,000 players, like they've blown out their ROI. They're going to keep it going because if they were losing money on that 1,000 players, they certainly wouldn't continue to go. That's exactly what I was saying. But I'm going to go back to, and I'll tell you why I think this state is one where gamers are jaded. There's no doubt. But I'm going to go back to Cliff Bleszinski, and I'm quoting him when he got out of the industry. He had said that he predicted it, and it's what's happening now. He says the problem, what's going to happen with the gaming industry is we're going to no longer have, we're only going to have AAA titles and new IP. That middle ground is going to die, and it's because the gamers become jaded. So I agree with that, and I think that that's what's happening. That you see some B games coming out, but they just can't survive, or they shut down, and it's the newer titles that taking a chance on a new IP and then looking at the AAA titles, which we see. I mean, let's be honest, we're in the years of let's remake something. And why is that? Because it's a proven game that'll sell, and that's what they're looking at. But Marathon, the only thing that I think, now again, I'm going to give you my opinion, Marathon, the reason why it's getting any hype is because it's Bungie. It's behind the Bungie name. And people are familiar with their work. You either loved the Bungie work or you hated the Bungie work. So, if you were a Halo Destiny guy, I'll guarantee you're giving this a shot. If you weren't a Halo and Destiny guy, I think 30% of that audience is giving this a shot. And the reason why I'm high on the 30% is because Arc Raider took off so well.
Yeah.
That people are just in that genre and say, let me try this. So that's where I came from when I made the statement that I don't think it's going to be a success, but I do believe that this is going to follow the Battlefield. 100%, they're going to get a good spike. It's going to follow the Battlefield, and you're going to see it drop off after a month or two.
And Touchy brings up another good point, which is the measure of success should also always be divided into something like single player, like Baldur's Gate 3 and a live service game. Because Baldur's Gate 3 is a whole other different argument to this equation, because that game is so different from the status quo and blew up. And that is a game that the traditional like casual gamer ended up knowing about and ended up loving because of how unique it is. So it's such a fascinating conversation that we will continue after we take a word from our website, activereloadgaming.com.
Got games you don't play anymore? Turn that collection into cash at activereloadgaming.com. It's fast, it's easy, and you get paid quick. Or if you are looking to buy, check us out on eBay or scroll through our Games by console. Find us at Active Reload Gaming.
Oh,
the calm went away.
Wow.
We were on a good, and I'm waiting for Cherry Tomato to put the thirst trap things in the comment that they've been putting lately. So I'm waiting for that. Yeah, I mean, Baldur's Gate 3 is an interesting example. I'm gonna be hypocritical here, but Baldur's Gate 3 had an all-time peak of 875,000 players on Steam. Now, this isn't obviously every platform, and as of 24-hour peak, it was still 62,000 people, which is almost the numbers of Marathon, which is more than the current Battlefield 6. So, what is your reasoning for that? Because you made some arguments for why these other games might have succeeded. Is it because Baldur's Gate is D&D, or is it because they were so different and that it was that critical acclaim? Because critical acclaim does add a lot to success as well, and everyone started lauding how incredible this experience is.
Again, I've always been that when you have a gimmick, and again, I'm saying that lovingly, not maliciously, that brings hype to the game. And I think Baldur's Gate back then stood out because it was the D&D, and um, I think that was different. It wasn't another shooter. It wasn't another whatever you want to place in there, and another platformer. So I think when you have something unique, and I'm going to take out anything that is massively uh, mascot driven, Mario, Pokemon. I mean, those things are going to sell whether it's the hot garbage game ever or it's something that revolutionized. So they're the ones examples that I take out when I say have to have a gimmick of some sort so I don't get blasted later on. I'm talking about the normal genres that don't have the cult followings like a Mario, or because Mario fans, I don't care what the game is. Christ, they've played tennis, they've played golf, they've raced, they've played soccer. They'll buy anything that's Mario. So I don't think those metrics apply to those games because they're going to sell regardless. It's the people that are coming out with newer ideas, or you know how long have they been asking for Call of Duty to take a year off break because it's just been declining and declining. So there's a lot of factors that go into that question, you know, and
Yeah.
that's why I said there's so many factors that go in that it's hard to pinpoint one thing.
So, and Touchy brings up a great point because we did talk about how like No Man's Sky should have been a dead game. It was a dead game, but they brought it back because of the post support. But now, like they said, publishers are too fast to bail if it's not an instant hit. Do you think publishers are one of the main issues in this whole thing because they are expecting a Fortnite level event immediately, and the minute that it doesn't garner that, like to me, like with the whole Highguard situation, however you felt about the game, whether it be because to me Highguard was never a horrible game. It was never a great game. It was in that mid to good range depending on what kind of player you are. And I think Highguard had the potential to become something more if the devs were allowed to cook more. Now, granted, they apparently had funding from NetEase, I think, and there was a whole debacle, but their funding got pulled from Highguard, and that's why the game's gone, because I think they were expecting a Apex level success or Fortnite level success immediately when realistically that game needed longer to cook. So I guess now when you get into this thing, when at a certain point, when is it we know what the root cause is, and that is what is detracting from the creativity and allowing these games to breathe? Because nowadays, like the meme is Concord level event, like if your game doesn't take off in a week to 2 weeks, you're dead. You're not, there is no coming back.
Well, again, I think we're in a different world because creativity only gets you so far anymore because everything is about the bottom line. That's the world we live in at this point. So, when you look at that and say, how creative could they be? Well, it's all driven by the dollar and the budget. That's the unfortunate side that you don't, unless you're an indie that's doing it on your own before people jump down. I've seen, one-man shows that make, really good games, indies that come out. We had it last year, Game of the Year. So it's out there. But the reality is we're looking at the big mainstream titles, and it all boils down to the dollar. That's where it's going to come from. And everyone has a different metric that they need. So I don't know that it's a simple answer. You don't have a simple answer. That's why we brought this topic up, because there is no simple answer.
So then do you think the industry, has broken the definition of success by tying it to impossible expectations?
Yes. And again, when you're looking at that too, my feeling should be, because you had said about like Fortnite, it's got to be judged on a bell curve for the pure fact that there's always the anomalies. It's like now, again, I'm an 80s, 90s basketball guy. You couldn't compare yourself, and everybody should have been Michael Jordan. He had to be the top score that you throw out, and you take the bottom score and throw out, and then look at it that way, or rate it on a bell curve. So when you look at the Fortnites, you cannot measure up to the Fortnites. It's an impossible measure. And see, again, I go back to the Fortnites. Their gimmick was, hey, we're going to give it away for free. And I know a lot of games have done that before, and a lot of games have done it since. But when you have the right idea, the right the right story that you're trying to get, and again, it didn't hurt that they were Epic Game Studios, that people were given a shot. And what do I have to lose? It's free. So again, I think there's gimmicks that go behind that.
And people also forget that Fortnite wasn't always a battle royale. That was actually a dying game because it was just going to be a PvE co-op mode, and they released the battle royale because they were chasing the trend of PUBG. Like, we'll throw our hat in the ring to see what happens, and Fortnite just ended up sticking. So I guess then, I feel like we get to the point then, what is your personal definition of success with the game anymore? Like, are you just going to be old school and just keep looking at, because with everyone who's been attending the podcast, we have a pizza bet coming up with Marathon. So like, what's your personal definition of success? Like, is it cultural relevance? Is it awards? Is it units? Is it leaving a lasting memory with the community? And then, like, I guess my question to you is, at this point in time, would you rather a beloved cult classic or a huge disposable blockbuster?
Well, let me start with what my measure of a success is in 2026. I don't know that you can make one general statement. I think you have to break that down. Is the game successful multiplayer? Because let's use this. I think it was the last Call of Duty. Multiplayer, people said was okay, but the campaign was hot garbage, and so was the last one. So again, you can have a game that's successful, modern day successful in multiplayer, but not modern day successful in. Then I'll go to the Baldur's Gate. There's the flip. They didn't have a multiplayer aspect of it, so you can't put that up against numbers that you're looking at for greatness for multiplayer. So I think you have to encapsulate some sort of what are you looking at defining what success is. Because like I said, you can have one success in one area and not in another. You can have an indie, like we just said, get 1,000 people playing, and that's massively successful. So I don't know that there's a generalized, here's what success. But when it comes to your final question that you have to me of how do I look at Marathon going on here, I am again going to equate it to Battlefield. That's where I think it's going to lose. It's going to start off hype. People are going to go on, play it. It's going to, over the weeks, it's going to diminish, and then it'll be in the same realm as a Battlefield.
I mean, I guess we'll find out now. There was a question that I did have. I'm drawing a blank. Oh, so hearing all of this, now I want you to make, because we talked about on Friday, I want you to make your case. How are we supposed to go back to the 360 era when we've identified all these problems?
Again, I think you're taking that statement and running with it, and reading too hard between the lines with going back to the 360 area. When I generally state that, and I'm going to go back to what Cliff Bleszinski said, we need to have the AAAs, the indies, or the new IP, and we need those B games. And I think we're lacking those B games to go back to there. I think going back to the 360 days, that there was always fresh new ideas coming out, that you always had something familiar to play and something new to play. And I think that's important distinction. You always had something that you had comfort with, but you always had that new IP that you're going to try. And you can sit here and tell me, and I would agree with you that, there's more games out there now than there ever was, but how many of them get lost in the noise? I think the marketing back in the 360 days was a million times better than it is today. I knew about games that were coming out. I don't now, unless it's a AAA title or it's something gimmicky that somebody's talking about. And again, gimmicky in a positive light.
Like I look at like a Lethal Company being a gimmicky game because of it's slapstick horror comedy. I also think, Touchy Feely says, I would say to me, success is a game that keeps running for many, many years, still brings in money while a game are dying left and right, kind of a long run type game like GTA 5. And I don't know, because like if we do the single player example in here, like I don't think that applies, but like also like I don't know. That one's a tough one because like there's some games that can run for many, many years, but they don't have high player counts. Like I said, it all gets once you get into the minutia of it, it really becomes muddy and you can't define it, because at the end of the day, it almost feels like a vibe check. It's like, hey, like, what's the vibe of it? Is it a success given the genre, given the scope of the game? Yay or nay? Then we evaluate.
Sure. And again, when you
I like Bombay's thing. All wrong. Does it bring you joy? If yes, then success. That's a good one.
Well, that was going to be my answer. Like, to me, success is, do I like it? And if that's a difficulty slider, then it's successful. But just to kind of point out what Touchy Feely said there, because I had said earlier, like, let's be honest, if you're going to do it that way, World of Warcraft, I mean, that's been going on forever and paying monthly fees. And the GTA 5, I agree, but that's back to my Jordan analogy. Like, that would be the bell curve. Like, they're the anomalies. Like, you don't get those all. I don't know that we'll ever see another World of Warcraft. I really don't.
Many MMOs have come, they've tried, and they're not here anymore.
Correct. So I don't know that we're ever going to see those. So when you try to live your game up to an expectation of that, or again, GTA 5, I think that you're going to be, not successful in that sense. So that's where I said, I don't know that there's a common, here it is, this game was successful, this one's not. Because again, I think it all boils down, all of the stuff boils down to, the profits and loss statement, because I don't care how successful the game is. The game could be the biggest successful game in the ever. And if the company's not making money, they're shutting it down. That's just where it comes from right now.
Yeah.
Nobody has the luxury just to let it run and lose money.
Touchy's question, WoW currently has an estimated 700,000 to 1.8 million people daily.
Wow.
And that's of 2026. And they just released like a new expansion, or releasing a new expansion. So like it's back. But then they also say, in that case, you also got to decide if you're evaluating from gamer's perspective or dev/publisher. Those are two different things. And I think the gamer side of things, people are a little bit more jaded nowadays. I think if it's not, scratching the itch that they're looking for, they're unwilling to give it a shot.
Which is back to your original statement of, short attention span, which I agree that. And now here's where I'm going to go back. I'm just going to go on a small tangent. Here's where I'm going to go back to what I've been saying past podcasts, many podcasts. With that said, this is where I'm saying I don't understand where the logic doesn't come in from the business standpoint. If we just all are saying that the majority of people's attention span is this, and you can throw in there that people are still complaining that it's $70 a game, blah, blah, blah. Then why don't you make shorter games, less dev time, less money? Now, don't get into the semantics saying it's the same time. You can cut it down purposefully, do it, and go off of the volume of sales, because you're telling me that everybody has a short attention span. You're telling me that all games don't hit and they could be great. If they did that, I think they'd sell more.
Yeah, but in terms of that, I think it's just everyone is vying for your attention, and they want to do the slow drip feed of content that makes sure you keep coming back and buying more. Like everything's a very cyclical problem, and I don't know how we're going to get out of it right now.
But doing the slow drip method, we just spent an hour talking about how gamers are jaded and short attention spans and all this. Then you got to change your model.
But Fortnite works.
Fortnite's the end. That's my Michael Jordan. This is the bell curve.
So does Warzone. So does Apex. There's a lot of. I wouldn't say Fortnite is the only example. There are many that have adopted the Fortnite model and have succeeded. Not to the level of Fortnite, but they're still pretty high. It's just I don't think every game should be doing that. That's the thing. I think it's when every game tries to be the copy of another, that is when you get into real issues.
But I agree. And when I say throwing out the Fortnites in the bell curve, that's more than that. There's a handful on the front, there's a handful on the back that you spit out. So again, I don't want to imply that I'm talking about just moving Fortnite. There are those out there that have constant revenue and doing well. But again, I don't care what anybody says, and nobody will ever change my opinion on this. I don't care if it was World of Warcraft. I don't care if it was Fortnite. If the company wasn't making more money than it was putting out, it would be shut down. Even with the popularity, like if there was a way, it would be shut down. They're not in business to run it at a loss.
Yeah.
So
from a gamer's perspective, if the game has servers and they're still up and running 10 years later, or if the gamers are still playing / modding the game in thousands, that's success. From publisher's perspective, it's all about money and captivating players to keep spending on game.
I agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I would say so. Like, even like in terms of the modding scene, like, that's why Skyrim and Fallout are still alive. It's because people still mod the hell out of them. But in terms of multiplayer, like, it's very rare nowadays to see a game go 10 years later. Overwatch is a great example of something that came out in the Xbox One era. 10 years later, it's still here. A game that really super dipped for player count and wasn't what it used to be, but they made a comeback. I think it's just with the whole AAA side of things, publishers need to give the games time to breathe and allow the devs to work out all of the kinks that might be found through player sentiment.
But see, and I'll just throw this back in your lap. We said about the Xbox 360 era that there was banger after banger. I wish we would find that article that you showed me that time to show the games that were dropped all in 1 month. How did they do it back then?
It was lower development costs, lower development times, lower development cycles. Like
no. I'm talking about from the perspective of the gamer. How did they sift through what was good and not good back then? They were getting just as much content.
I was too young to remember. I don't know. Well, how did you do it? Because you bought all the games. I just grabbed them.
I was just playing
because back then the only thing I can remember was watching G4 and like actually sifting through gaming magazines is what I can remember. Because like I think the way discoverability was back then was a much more intimate experience. But also when you walk into a store and talk about the marketing, everything was plastered all over. Nowadays it isn't.
Well, I said that earlier in this. The marketing to us has become nil. But yes, I do think that it was more intimate back then. And the only thing I had was G4. It was always on in the house, or the gaming, as you saw, I used to buy every gaming magazine as well. So that's how I got my information back then, for sure. Yeah. And again, it's the syndrome. Like if you go to YouTube and watch a music video, or you just hear the song, the music video hit harder. Like, oh my God, I like that. And it may not be the song, it's the visual with it. I think that's, again, what's lost in the video game, that they're not out there marketing like that. I used to see G4 talking about it.
Gary Tomato shouts out X-Play.
X-Play, absolutely. X-Play on G4, that's sweet. G4, as a side note, I bought a satellite dish for the house. It was a company called Vroom back then, just so I can get G4. So, because my cable company didn't carry it. So that's how fanatical we were here. But yeah, I just think that it's intimate is a good description right there, that I don't think it's as intimate anymore. Back then, when you would turn on the 360 and see an ad of some sort, it was for a game. You weren't getting bombarded by Crest toothpaste. So again, I just think it was a different time that we will never get back.
And then Touchy says, I also want to see the game preservation be a real thing, where publishers have to release server game code so people can continue to host their own servers so the game survives post-publisher.
Well, see, again, that's where we've talked about numerous times. When you take a look at emulation. That's great. That's, to me, still game preservation. But these kids nowadays, and I don't want to sound like the young, but these kids nowadays that are Fortnite, like if you liked don't be a 6'7" there. When you played Fortnite and you liked the Snoop Dogg one or the Travis Scott one they did or whatever, you'll never be able to go back and play that again unless the gaming gods of Epic decide to re-release it in some way. It's gone. So how do you do game preservation for a Fortnite type game?
I don't know. That is a interesting topic, the whole thing. And then Nate Edwards says, I miss good video game commercials. Video game commercials used to be really fun. I just saw one that popped up on Twitter the other day that said Xbox used to have some banger commercials, and it was for the student deal of buying a Surface laptop and getting a free Xbox 360 with it. And it had a Spartan from Halo Reach with the Spartan laser destroy a mini fridge. It was like, you can have a mini fridge as a student, or you can get a Surface laptop with a free Xbox 360. I don't know. Gaming used to have a little bit more sauce. Like I said, we have such an influx of amazing games nowadays where we can't stop playing amazing games, but we're missing a bit of the sauce that made it special.
Correct. And let's be honest, and again, I'm in marketing for my living. I 100% get that they claim that they might be targeting the gamer and doing this and targeting ads. That's why you don't see it as a general. But I have a retro video game sales website. We do podcasts most of the time, twice a week. I have an eBay store of it. Everything I search on my Google search is something related to games, and I still don't get targeted. Somebody's missing the boat there.
I will say the last thing I'll say about marketing in terms of like capturing the audience, I think the only thing that still gets us close enough to the intimate experience back then is the Summer Game Fest era, where It's that summer and everyone comes out and they are targeting you with all the fun commercials that they are putting together. I think there's stuff like that, but it's not littered throughout the year, and it just doesn't feel as exciting sometimes. But all in all, I think one of the thesis of this whole conversation is, success in modern gaming is no longer one thing. It depends on scales, intent, budget, audience, longevity, and impact. The problem is that the industry often still acts like there's only one scoreboard.
No, but I agree. And they can't. But just thinking about that, this would take a lot of work. But I think it would be a fun podcast if we did have the podcast that we ran all old video game commercials we could find.
That'd be fun.
Because I just thought, because I almost wore it when Nate and I went out hunting this weekend. I had my Terry Crews Crackdown 3 shirt ready to roll. And I can remember even that ad as far back as, as early as that was now, Terry Crews doing the Crackdown commercial. Like, come on, man, bring that stuff back.
And then Cherry Tomato Boy says, everybody misses the death of the monoculture. We used to be a society.
That's true. But even with the new vast society that we live in, there's still ways that you could target all of them, and don't look at them that way but just as a gamer, you could still target them.
Yeah. But I think this was a good one, even though I don't feel like we really came to a whole on conclusion, because I think as we said, it's very hard, but I think there is a lot of different facets that just makes it not so simple anymore.
But at the end of it, you're still going to owe me a pizza. Doesn't matter. And maybe even Bombay. I don't know. Well,
let's just define that now. What? So everyone can hear it. In terms of marathon, obviously the peak right now was 88,000 people on Steam. We're going to have to use Steam charts as the example for this. What is the threshold of players?
I think the threshold has to be.
You're muted.
And that's where it should be.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to say 50% of players lost, I think, is...
Now, you're trying to say that 50% of the players lost is still successful?
No, that's the fall off, I think, that we look for.
Fall off when?
A month after the game.
I'll take that.
A month after the game, if 50% or more of the players have left the game.
Yep.
then you get a pizza. I think that is the fairest model here.
Correct.
So,
and if it goes below 40%, then you owe a pizza to me and to Bombay.
Below 40. So wait, hang on a second. So that means
60% drop. 60% drop.
Okay. All right. Sure. So, but all
there
that
you go, Bombay. I got your back.
But all that being said, to those who are new or returning, and if you haven't already, you could follow us on all of our socials right here on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Spotify. We're at Active Reload Gaming on Twitch or Twitter/X. We're at Active Rel. That's with an REL, Active Rel Gaming. So go on, give us a follow over there. Join Discord in the top left corner. Come talk with us and have fun. Right after this, I have to go play a Madden game because I'm in a franchise and I've been getting my ass kicked, and I'm not looking forward to this game. But you know what? It's fine. Also, the NFL news today has been crazy. I'll talk to you after this about it.
Touchy Feely wants to see your shirt. That sweet shirt. Great concert. It was the Lincoln Park show that we went to. Great concert.
Lincoln Park. In Philadelphia. I also saw them in Seattle too. I saw them twice. Incredible concert. And the next time they go on a tour, highly recommend the new singer. Now this is not gaming talk. The new singer was great. I really liked her. She's not Chester, and I don't want her to be Chester. I want her to be her own person, and I think she was able to capture the sound of Chester enough to make those songs really fun, but she also let the crowd kind of take control of some of the songs too. So like it was a good push and pull. And I think the new album From Zero was honestly really good. So I can't wait to see what Linkin Park cooks up next.
Yeah. So. And I was the biggest Linkin Park fan out there, and I did not like her at first, but after I seen her in concert, gave her the opportunity and the chance, I echo everything that Kobe just said, because she definitely, and I think, as Kobe said, that it was really touching to me, the parts of Chester in his songs that Chester was known for. That's when she would take the mic to the crowd and not even attempt to do it and show the respect and the love to Chester. So
yep,
we're big Linkin Park fans.
Yeah, really good concert. So, but hope each and every one of you have a great rest of your week. Stay tuned. I'll probably be streaming more Marathon throughout the week or whatever other game pops up. I've been thinking of streaming.
He needs to keep that 50% above.
Yeah,
that's what he's trying to do.
Yeah, I like Marathon. I'm having fun with it. So, but take care, everyone. Have a great rest of your week, and we will see you all next time.